The auditorium lights blazed like Judgment Day. Hundreds of caps and gowns, proud parents, clutching programs, yet my stomach twisted into knots. I was valedictorian, the one they said scraped by on grit, while my little sister Bella sat front row Ivy League, stole gleaming mom's diamond hand on her shoulder like a crown. Dad wouldn't even meet my eyes. For 4 years, I'd worked doubles at the diner, slept in the library, clawed scholarships from nothing, because Mom said clear as glass. We invest in winners. Bella's the winner. I swallowed the knife every time. Then the dean took the podium. Before diplomas, he smiled. Our valedictorian has a dedication. My words, but not the ones I rehearsed. I'd rewritten them at 3 a.m. Heart-pounding evidence burning in my pocket. He began reading slow, deliberate, to the parents who paid $250,000 for one daughter's future, and told the other she wasn't worth a dime. Gasps rippled. Phones rose like periscopes. To the sister who knew her SAT scores were bought, yet smiled for the cameras. Bella's face drained white. Mom's hand froze mid-applause. Dad's program slipped to the floor. The dean didn't stop. He couldn't. Every line was mine, every secret documented. And this was only the opening act. Stay until the end. Because what happens when the adopted daughter they buried turns the grave into a stage, and the final twist proves blood isn't the only thing that binds a family, or breaks it forever. My name is Alex Harper, 22 years old, a soon-to-be graduate of State University with a degree in English literature, earned through sheer stubbornness and too many sleepless nights. I grew up in a tidy brick house in suburban Ohio, the kind of place where neighbors wave over picket fences and everyone pretends life is fair. But in our family, fairness was a word my parents reserved for everyone except me. From the moment Bella came along, 2 years after me, all pink cheeks and easy smiles, something shifted. Mom, a real estate agent with a voice like polished steel, started talking about potential and returns on investment. Dad, an accountant, who could balance a spreadsheet in his sleep, nodded along his eyes, already calculating. I was the practice run, they said. Bella was the masterpiece. By the time I was 10, I understood the rules. Bella got the new clothes, the private tutors, the summer camps in New England. I got hand-me-downs public school and a pat on the head if I brought home straight A's. High school only sharpened the divide. Bella's bedroom looked like a catalog lavender walls, a desk the size of a small island college banners tacked up before she'd even taken the SAT. My room was the converted attic slanted ceilings and a window that stuck in winter. I didn't mind the space. I minded the silence. When report cards came, Mom would pin Bella's to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a Harvard crest. Mine went into a drawer. You're capable, Dad would say, not unkindly, so you don't need the fuss. Capable. The word tasted like chalk. College loomed like a finish line I wasn't sure I'd cross. Bella's acceptance letters arrived in thick envelopes, each one a celebration. Mine were emails, community college first, then transfer credits to state. Mom sighed when I showed her the financial aid package. We can't stretch the budget, she said, as if the budget were a rubber band already snapped. Dad added Bella's at Vanderbilt. That's where the network is. Network, another word that left me outside the circle. So I built my own. Weekends at the campus diner, 5 a.m. Shifts before 8 o'clock classes, fingers raw from scrubbing grease. I learned to smile at professors who might write recommendations to hunt scholarships the way other kids hunted parties. Every dollar I earned went into a jar labeled tuition, hidden behind winter boots in my closet. Bella sent postcards from Nashville sorority formals, tailgates a life photographed in perfect filters. I sent nothing back. What was there to say? The emotional isolation settled in quietly the way snow piles up overnight. Family dinners became minefields. If I mentioned a paper, I was proud of Mom's eyes glazed over. If Bella flunked a quiz, it was a crisis requiring emergency ice cream and strategy sessions. Dad once looked up from his phone long enough to say, "Alex, you're fine. You always land on your feet." Fine. Another chalky word. Senior year brought its own peculiar torture. Bella, now 20, breezed through her junior year at Vanderbilt on a partial scholarship partial because mom and dad covered the rest without blinking. They flew down for parents' weekend, came home with souvenir cups and stories about deans who knew Bella's name. I stayed on campus, cramming for finals in the library's fluorescent hum. When I called to wish them safe travels, Mom said, "Oh, honey, we're exhausted. Bella's schedule is brutal." Click. Graduation week arrived like a storm I'd been watching on the horizon. My cap and gown hung in the closet, pressed and ready. I'd been named valedictorian, top of the class, summa cum laude, the works. The email from the president's office felt surreal, an invitation to speak, to dedicate the ceremony. I printed it, folded it small, and tucked it into my journal. For once, I thought they'd have to listen. The night before the ceremony, our house buzzed with Bella's energy. She'd flown in that afternoon, her suitcase spilling designer sundresses across the living room. Mom fluttered around adjusting Bella's honor cords, snapping photos for the family album. Dad polished his loafers, humming an old Springsteen song. I sat on the stairs, invisible in my jeans and hoodie, clutching the speech I'd rewritten a dozen times. "Alex, you're wearing that?" Mom asked, glancing over. Her tone wasn't cruel, just distracted, as if I were a smudge on the lens. "It's comfortable," I said. Bella laughed, light and tinkling. "State's dress code must be super chill." Dad cleared his throat. "Let's not start." But his eyes stayed on Bella, proud and soft. Dinner was takeout Italian, Bella's favorite. Mom raised her glass, sparkling cider, because tomorrow was a big day. To our graduate, she toasted. Bella beamed. I raised my glass too, the cider sour on my tongue. Later in the attic, I spread my notes across the bed. The speech was supposed to be gratitude and inspiration. Instead, the pages filled with questions I'd never dared ask aloud. Why her? Why not me? What made one daughter worth everything and the other worth nothing? I scratched out lines, rewrote others, my pen digging grooves into the paper. Sleep never came. Morning dawned gray and humid. I dressed in the bathroom while Bella monopolized the mirror downstairs, Mom fussing with her hair. Dad loaded the car with Bella's things, extra cords, a bouquet, a framed photo for the graduate table. My gown was folded neatly in a plastic bag. No one asked if I needed anything. The drive to campus was 40 minutes of Bella's playlist and Mom's running commentary on Vanderbilt's alumni network. I stared out the window, cornfields blurring past my speech, folded in my pocket like a live wire. Dad caught my eye in the rearview mirror, once opened his mouth, then closed it again. Silence was easier. We parked near the auditorium, a brick behemoth with banners flapping in the breeze. Families streamed in, laughter echoing. Mom linked arms with Bella, steering her toward the VIP check-in. Dad hesitated, then followed. I trailed behind the plastic gown, rustling against my legs. Inside, the lobby smelled of coffee and hairspray. Graduates milled about, parents snapping photos. I spotted classmates I'd tutored, studied with, cried with over finals. They waved, excited. I managed to smile, my pulse already racing. Then Mom's voice cut through the noise. "Alex, stand over here. We need a family picture." She positioned Bella center frame, Dad on one side, herself on the other. I hovered at the edge until she beckoned impatiently. The photographer counted down. Click. In the preview screen, Bella glowed. I was a shadow. We filed into the auditorium, rows of folding chairs under a vaulted ceiling. The stage loomed, microphone gleaming. My name was on the program, Alexandra Harper, valedictorian. Bella's was there too, under honors. Mom squeezed Bella's hand. Dad adjusted his tie. I found my seat in the front row with the other speakers. The lights dimmed, conversations hushed. The processional music started, pomp and circumstance swelling. Graduates marched in a river of black gowns. I scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces, for some sign that this moment mattered. And then, just as I stepped into the aisle to take my place, I spotted the one thing I never expected to see, and my heart skipped a beat. The sight that stopped me cold was a single white envelope tucked into the program on Bella's chair. My name typed in elegant script across the front, sealed with the university president's gold embossment. It shouldn't have been there. No one outside the commencement committee knew about the dedication speech, let alone had physical copies. My fingers trembled as I snatched it, sliding it inside my gown before anyone noticed. Whatever was inside could wait. The ceremony was starting and I needed every ounce of focus to survive the next few hours. But that envelope became the seed of everything that followed, sprouting questions I'd buried for years. Questions that took me back to the beginning, to the quiet moments when I first learned the shape of favoritism. I was 8 the summer Mom enrolled Bella in the elite day camp an hour away, the one with horseback riding and Mandarin lessons. I'd begged to go too. The brochure promised art classes and a lake for swimming. Mom sat me down at the kitchen table, her manicured nails tapping the cost sheet. "Honey, we have to choose," she said, voice syrupy with regret that never reached her eyes. Bella's only 6 and early exposure matters more at her age. Dad nodded from behind his newspaper, murmuring something about compound interest. I swallowed the lump in my throat and asked if I could at least take the city bus to the community center's free program. Mom's smile tightened. Public transportation at 8? Absolutely not. So Bella spent July learning to post on a pony while I watered Mrs. Henderson's roses for $1 a day, saving for the sketch pads I never bought because the money went to school supplies instead. By middle school, the pattern calcified. Bella's orthodontist appointments were scheduled around her dance recitals. Mine happened only after a teacher noticed my crowded teeth in class photos. When the gifted program offered a spot to one Harper sibling, Mom drove Bella to the interview herself, rehearsing answers in the car. I stayed home with a migraine from cafeteria fluorescent lights, the rejection letter arriving weeks later with a polite note about limited funding. I folded it into a paper crane and hid it in my sock drawer, the first of many small defeats I learned to swallow without sound. High school sharpened the blade. Bella attended St. Catherine's Academy on a merit scholarship that somehow required a 5-figure suggested donation each semester. Dad wrote the checks without discussion, explaining to me over cereal that private education opened doors, state never could. I pointed out my 4.0 GPA and perfect attendance. He ruffled my hair like I was still 8. Doors open for effort, Alex, but they swing wider for pedigree. That night, I started a new notebook, plain spiral from the dollar store, its cover labeled Evidence in careful block letters. Page 1. They chose her school over mine. Reason given pedigree. Community college was my rebellion and my salvation. I enrolled the fall after graduation, commuting on the 6:15 bus with factory workers and single moms. Tuition was $1,200 a semester if I kept full-time employment. Anything less meant loans I couldn't afford. The diner on Route 40 became my second home, grease under my nails. Coffee breath, the rhythmic slap of spatula on grill. I memorized the breakfast rush like choreography, eggs over easy at table 3, no onions on the hash, extra napkins for the trucker with the shaky hands. Tips averaged $12 a shift. I tucked every bill into a mason jar labeled transfer fund, watching the layers of green grow like sedimentary rock. Bella, meanwhile, posted Instagram stories from Vanderbilt's manicured quads, tailgates, and sundresses, library carols with monogrammed tote bags, a roommate whose father owned half of Nashville. Mom commented heart emojis on every photo. My own posts were rare, a blurry shot of the community college library at 2 a.m., captioned, "Home Sweet Fluorescent Hell." Bella never liked them. Neither did Mom. Transferring to state after 2 years felt like surfacing for air. I'd earned a 3.98, enough for the honors program, and a partial scholarship that covered books if I lived at home. The attic bedroom became my fortress desk under the eaves, a string of Christmas lights for ambiance, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs marking time between study sessions. Night shifts at the campus cafe paid better than the diner. I learned to pull espresso shots one-handed while highlighting Chaucer with the other. Sleep came in 90-minute bursts between closing and opening my body, adapting the way soldiers learn to nap in foxholes. Bella's sophomore year coincided with my junior. She pledged Kappa Delta and sent home photos from formal, her date's fraternity crest gleaming on his cufflinks. Dad framed the picture for his office. I came home for Thanksgiving with a research grant under my belt and a professor's recommendation for a national conference. Mom asked if I'd gained weight. Dad wanted to know if State's cafeteria served decent steak. I excused myself early, retreating to the attic where my journal waited. Page 43. They asked about her dress, not my grant. Reason given none. The bitterness didn't arrive in a single wave. It seeped in slowly like dye through fabric. I noticed it first in small choices, skipping Bella's birthday dinner because I couldn't afford the restaurant's entrees, deleting her number after she forgot mine, choosing library corrals facing the wall so I wouldn't see couples studying together. The journal became my confessor. I wrote in the margins of class notes on receipt paper from the cafe and the condensation on bus windows. They flew to Nashville for Parents' Weekend, but couldn't drive 40 minutes to see my honors presentation. Bella's car payment is more than my rent. I smiled in the family Christmas photo while Mom adjusted Bella's necklace for the third time. Some nights I read the entries aloud to the empty room, testing how the words tasted. They were sharp, metallic, the flavor of blood from biting my tongue too long. I told myself documenting was different from dwelling, that cataloging injustice was the first step to understanding it. But understanding never eased the ache behind my ribs when Mom called to ask if I could pick Bella up from the airport. Her flight landed during my shift, but family came first, didn't it? The summer before senior year, I landed a paid internship at the university press, editing manuscripts for pocket change and resume lines. Bella spent hers in Europe, a study program that was mostly vineyards and cathedrals. She sent postcards to the house. Mom displayed them on the mantle like trophies. One arrived addressed to me, Bella's looping script across a photo of the Eiffel Tower at dusk. "Wish you were here, sis, XOXO. I turned it over. No message on the back. I slipped it between journal pages without comment. By fall, the attic walls seemed to close in with every care package Mom mailed south. Homemade cookies, new boots, a Care Bear wearing Vanderbilt colors. My own packages were self-addressed. Ramen bricks, highlighters, a second-hand laptop that wheezed through term papers. I stopped mentioning achievements at dinner. The silence was cleaner than their indifference. The journal filled faster now, entries dated like medical charts tracking a chronic condition. October 12th. Dean's list again. No one asked. November 3rd. Bella's Instagram has 3,000 likes on a sorority formal photo. Mine has 12. Yet the work sustained me. I learned to find pride in the margins, perfect scores on exams. No one celebrated. Reference letters from professors who saw me when my family looked through me. The cafe manager promoted me to shift lead. The extra 50 cents an hour bought real coffee instead of the instant packets. I started running at dawn, pounding campus sidewalks until my lungs burned each footfall a promise. This ends when I graduate. Senior year brought applications for graduate programs, fellowships, anything that might launch me beyond Ohio's flat horizon. I stayed up until the sky turned lavender, drafting personal statements that never mentioned home. The journal's final pages filled with lists, schools applied to deadlines, backup plans. I underlined one line in red. No loans, no favors, no Harper money. Then came the email from the university arriving at 2:17 a.m., while I proofread a paper on Milton's Paradise. The subject line glowed President's Special Ceremony Invitation. My heart stuttered as I clicked. Congratulations, Alexandra Harper. As valedictorian, you are invited to deliver the dedication address. The honor was staggering, my name in print, my words shaping the ceremony. But the final clause sliced through the joy like a scalpel. With the stipulation that content be pre-approved by the commencement committee to ensure alignment with institutional values. Pre-approved. The phrase echoed Mom's voice. Dad's silence, every door closed before I knocked. My blood ran cold as I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a dare. The cursor blinked like a metronome, counting down to something I couldn't name, and I read the clause again, then a third time until the words stopped swimming. Pre-approved. Institutional values. The phrase felt less like a safeguard and more like a muzzle. I closed the laptop with deliberate calm, the screen's glow dying against the attic's slanted ceiling. Graduation was 6 weeks away, and for the first time in years, I held something they couldn't touch: a stage, a microphone, an audience of thousands. If they wanted alignment, I would give them alignment, my version. Morning came with the smell of Mom's cinnamon rolls drifting up the stairwell, a scent usually reserved for Bella's homecomings. I descended in yesterday's jeans hair twisted into a knot and found the kitchen already transformed into campaign headquarters. A glossy Vanderbilt banner stretched across the refrigerator. Bella's honor stole mock-up lay draped over a chair like a royal sash. Mom stood at the island phone, propped against a cereal box, live-streaming Bella's latest TikTok. Dad sipped coffee from a mug that read, "Proud Commodore Parent." Neither looked up when I poured cereal into a chipped bowl. I slid the printed invitation across the table, the gold seal catching the light. "I got this," I said, voice steady. Mom paused the video mid-laugh. Dad lowered his mug. Valedictorian, I continued, tapping the embossed letterhead. "And the President's Award for Overcoming Adversity. They want me to speak at commencement." Silence stretched thick as the cinnamon glaze cooling on the counter. Bella's recorded giggle looped in the background. Mom finally glanced at the page, lips pursing the way they did when appraising a house with bad curb appeal. "That's nice," she said, the word landing like a participation ribbon. Dad adjusted his glasses, scanning the text with the same focus he gave tax forms. State's version of summa cum laude, right? Respectable. Respectable! The word scraped. I waited for more congratulations. Pride, anything but Mom, was already scrolling again. Bella's dean just emailed. She announced, eyes bright. She's on the shortlist for the Undergraduate Research Prize. Vanderbilt flies finalists to present in person. First class. She beamed at Dad. "We should book the hotel now." Dad nodded, reaching for his wallet. "Absolutely. That's legacy material." Legacy. I felt the words settle on my shoulders like a damp coat. My cereal turned to paste in my mouth. I pushed the bowl away. The award comes with a $5,000 stipend. I tried again. And my name goes on the alumni donor wall. Mom waved a manicured hand. Honey walls are walls. Vanderbilt's network, that's generational. Bella's already connected with senators' kids. She turned to Dad. "Remember the Roths? Their daughter interned at the White House after a single mixer." Dad grunted agreement, but his eyes flicked to me, brief, almost guilty, before returning to his phone. I stood, the chair legs scraping linoleum. "I'm the first in our family to be valedictorian," I said, louder than intended. The kitchen stilled. Mom's smile didn't waver, but it thinned. "Alex, don't make this a competition. You chose state. You wanted independence." She stressed the last word like a diagnosis. Bella's path required investment. That's just economics. Economics. Another brick in the wall they'd built between us. I opened my mouth, closed it, then left the invitation on the table like evidence at a crime scene. Upstairs, I opened a new document titled Dedication Draft 1. The cursor waited. I typed a single line. "To the parents who taught me the cost of everything and the value of nothing." I stared at it until the letters blurred, then deleted it. Too direct. They'd smell the blood before I drew it. The next days blurred into strategy. I printed the award criteria: GPA above 3.9, demonstrated leadership, documented financial hardship, and highlighted every line I'd met with surgical precision. I emailed the commencement coordinator requesting the exact word count and time allotment. 15 minutes, she replied. 900 seconds to rewrite 4 years of silence. I scheduled rehearsal slots, memorized the stage diagram, practiced breathing exercises until my ribcage stopped shaking. At home, the dismissal calcified. Mom ordered custom graduation announcements. Bella's name in raised gold foil, Vanderbilt crest watermark. Mine arrived as an afterthought, a stack of plain cards she'd picked up at the drugstore. We ran out of time for personalization. She apologized, not sounding sorry. Dad framed Bella's acceptance letter beside the front door, right where guests couldn't miss it. My award certificate stayed folded in my backpack. I began composing in fragments. In the library between classes. Some legacies are inherited. Others are forged in the dark. On the bus ride home, I learned gratitude from absence. During night shifts, wiping tables. To the sister who never had to choose between groceries and textbooks. Each line felt like a splinter I could press deeper later. I kept the draft's password-protected the file named Grocery List to deflect curiosity. Bella arrived for spring break, suitcase wheels rattling like applause. She hugged Mom at the threshold, then me, perfunctory air kiss near my cheek. "Heard about your little speech," she said, tossing hair over one shoulder. "Try not to bore everyone with your sob story." Mom laughed, the sound bright and brittle. Dad ruffled Bella's hair. "She's teasing." Right bells. Bella's smile didn't reach her eyes. Totally. That night, I added a new section to the speech, voice low, as I recorded it on my phone. "To the sibling who measured success in likes and legacy admissions, may you never know what it costs to earn every inch." I played it back, deleted, rewrote. The words needed to cut without naming to bleed, without scarring the wrong flesh. Rehearsal day dawned humid, the campus quad sticky with pollen. I arrived early, gown folded over my arm, the revised speech memorized to the syllable. The auditorium smelled of polished wood and nervous sweat. Other speakers practiced in corners, voices echoing off rafters. I took the stage heart, hammering against my ribs, and began. "To the class of 2025, I started the microphone cool against my lips. The words flowed gratitude for professors' nods to late-night study groups, the universal ache of finals week. Safe. Aligned. Then I pivoted, voice dropping to a hush that forced the empty seats to lean in. And to those who stood beside us or didn't thank you for teaching us what we're capable of when no one else believes." I paused, letting the silence stretch. In the wings, the commencement director nodded approval. I smiled small and sharp and stepped down. The speech was a Trojan horse. The real soldiers waited inside. Afterward, I lingered near the sound booth, pretending to adjust my tassel. Families trickled in for photos, parents with lice, siblings with signs. I spotted mine near the stage steps, Mom smoothing Bella's hair. Dad checking his watch. Then Dad detached, approaching the principal, Dr. Ellison, silver-haired and affable, the man who'd signed my award letter. They stood beneath the proscenium arch, heads bent close. I drifted nearer, pulse thudding in my ears. Dad's voice was low, urgent. "Just keep it contained. She doesn't need to know about the..." The rest dissolved into murmur, but Dr. Ellison's nod was tight, his eyes flicking toward the exit. Dad clapped his shoulder, the gesture too familiar, then returned to Mom and Bella, all smiles. Something in that whisper felt wrong, like a chord struck sour in a song I thought I knew by heart. I slipped backstage, the speech pages suddenly heavier in my pocket, and wondered what exactly they were so desperate to keep contained. The sour chord of Dad's whisper vibrated in my ears long after Dr. Ellison walked away, his polished loafers clicking across the stage like a countdown. I pressed myself against the velvet curtain, pulse hammering, trying to piece together the fragments. Birth certificate. Old agreement. My name hadn't been spoken, but the way Dad's shoulders hunched, the way the principal's smile flattened into something professional and cold, told me the subject was me. I should have marched over, demanded answers. But the rehearsal schedule was ironclad, and the commencement director was already waving me back to the podium for timing notes. I swallowed the questions, tasting metal, and stepped into the light again. The second run-through felt different. Every word I spoke about resilience and gratitude now carried a second shadow. I scanned the empty seats, imagining them filled tomorrow with parents who'd never missed a single game, a single recital. My voice cracked on the line about family support, and I covered it with a cough. Bella arrived midway through, slipping into the front row with a Starbucks cup and a smirk that said she owned the place. She wore a silk blouse, the color of Vanderbilt gold hair, glossy under the house lights. Mom followed, clutching a worn manila folder against her chest like a shield, the edges frayed and yellowed with age. I'd seen that folder before years ago when Mom thought I was asleep pulling it from the safe behind Dad's tax files. I'd assumed old property deeds. Now it looked like contraband. Again from the top, Alex, the director, called. I nodded, but my eyes stayed on Mom. She sat rigid, knuckles white around the folder, gaze fixed on Bella, as if the rest of us were background noise. Bella scrolled, her phone, lips curling every time I hit a poignant pause. When I reached the part about learning to stand alone, she let out a soft, theatrical sigh, loud enough for the sound tech to glance over. Heat flooded my cheeks, but I kept my voice steady. This was practice for tomorrow. I would not give her the satisfaction of a flinch. Between takes, Bella sauntered up the aisle, iced latte in hand. Try not to sound so victim-y, she said, voice syrupy. People want inspiration, not a sob story. She tapped the podium with a manicured nail. Maybe throw in something about how State's cafeteria food builds character. Mom chuckled, the sound brittle. Dad was still nowhere in sight. He'd vanished after the whisper claiming a phone call. I forced a smile that felt like glass. Noted. I'll workshop the menu metaphors. Bella rolled her eyes and returned to her seat, but not before leaning close enough for me to smell her vanilla perfume. Don't embarrass us, she murmured. The words landed like a slap, but I absorbed them, filed them away for the speech's next revision. The director called for a break, and I escaped to the green room, splashing water on my face, rehearsing breathing the way my academic advisor taught me during finals week. In the mirror, my reflection looked older than 22 eyes ringed with fatigue, and something sharper suspicion. When I returned, Mom had moved to the wings folder, still clutched tight. She was speaking to the faculty marshal, voice low, gesturing toward the stage. I caught only snippets. Family matter. Discretion. Before she spotted me and snapped the folder shut. Her smile arrived a beat too late. Everything okay, honey? You look flushed. I nodded, throat dry. Just nerves. She patted my arm, the gesture perfunctory, then returned to Bella, who was now taking selfies with the commencement banner. The folder never left Mom's grip. The final run-through was flawless on paper, timing, perfect inflection, practiced applause, simulated by the tech crew clapping from the sound booth. But every time I glanced at Mom, the folder seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Dad reappeared for the wrap-up, face unreadable, clapping me on the back with a "good job, kiddo" that rang hollow. Bella yawned theatrically, checking her watch. Can we go? I have a nail appointment before dinner. In the lobby, families milled about, graduates comparing tassel colors. I lingered near the coat check, pretending to adjust my gown while watching Mom fish for her car keys. The folder was now tucked under her arm, a corner bent from pressure. Bella scrolled nearby, complaining about parking. Dad checked emails. The moment felt staged, a tableau of normalcy stretched too thin. I stepped closer, close enough to see the folder's label, faded, but legible, Harper Private. My surname, but the handwriting wasn't Mom's neat realtor script. It was Dad's old-fashioned cursive, the kind he used for birthday cards when we were small. Mom turned startled, and the folder slipped from her grasp. It hit the marble floor with a soft thud, papers fanning like startled birds. She lunged, but I was faster, kneeling to help. My fingers brushed a document before she snatched it away. Heavy cream stock, official seal. The words, birth certificate, in bold relief. But the name at the top wasn't Alexandra Harper. It was Alessandra Grace Moretti, born October 12, 2002. Mother listed as Maria Moretti. Father unknown. The hospital was in Cleveland, not the suburban birthing center where Mom claimed I'd entered the world screaming. My lungs forgot how to work. Mom's hand clamped over mine, yanking the paper free. It's nothing, she hissed, voice trembling. Old paperwork. Give it. Her eyes darted to Dad, who'd gone statue still, phone forgotten. Bella glanced up, smirk faltering for the first time. I stood slowly, the name Alessandra echoing in my skull like a foreign language. Mom stuffed the certificate back into the folder, hugging it to her chest as if it might explode. We'll discuss this at home, she said, the words a threat wrapped in maternal concern. But home was 40 minutes away, and the rehearsal was over. Graduates streamed past us, laughing, oblivious. I followed my family to the parking lot in silence, the folder's image burned into my retinas. Alessandra Grace Moretti. The pieces didn't fit my olive skin against Mom's fair freckles, my dark curls against Bella's straight blonde, the way strangers sometimes asked if I was adopted from somewhere exotic. I'd laughed it off. Now the laughter felt like choking. In the car, Bella filled the silence with complaints about traffic. Mom stared out the window folder on her lap like a sleeping bomb. Dad drove with both hands at 10 and 2 knuckles white. I sat in the back rehearsing tomorrow's speech in my head, but the words had shifted again. Gratitude felt like a lie. Resilience, a weapon. By the time we pulled into the driveway, I knew one thing with blinding clarity: whatever agreement they'd made, whatever birth certificate they'd buried, it ended on that stage tomorrow. And I would be the one holding the microphone. As we unloaded, Mom's purse swung against her hip, the folder now inside. She paused to lock the car, and the purse slipped from her shoulder. The folder tumbled out, landing open at my feet. This time, the birth certificate stared up at me fully. Alessandra Grace Moretti, stamped, adoption finalized, with my parents' signatures dated 2 years after the birth. My heart skipped a beat as the truth sank in, not just hidden, but rewritten. The birth certificate lay face up on the driveway asphalt, the adoption stamp glaring like a brand under the late afternoon sun. My parents' signatures dated February 14, 2005, sat beneath the judge's seal 2 years and 4 months after the original birth record. I was 2 when the paperwork made me theirs, old enough to remember a different crib, a different lullaby, maybe even a different name. Mom's purse strap had caught on the car door handle. The folder spilled open like a confession she never meant to give. She lunged for it, but I was already kneeling, fingers brushing the raised notary seal before she yanked it away. "It's complicated," she hissed, voice cracking for the first time I could remember. Dad stood frozen beside the open trunk, keys dangling. Bella's eyes widened, then narrowed, calculating. I stood slowly, the paper's image burned into my retinas, and followed them inside without a word. That night, the house felt like a museum of someone else's life. I locked the attic door, opened my laptop, and began cross-referencing. The county clerk's website required a login. I used the public library card I'd kept since high school. Within minutes, I had the adoption decree: Alessandra Grace Moretti relinquished by Maria Moretti, no father listed, finalized in Cuyahoga County Court. A second document attached a sealed medical history noting developmental delays, possible trauma. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Developmental delays. The phrase Mom had used when I struggled with reading in 1st grade, the reason she'd pushed Bella into gifted programs while I repeated phonics worksheets alone. I dug deeper. Voter records showed Maria Moretti, age 48, still living in the same East Cleveland apartment listed on the birth certificate. A Facebook profile picture confirmed the resemblance. Dark eyes, olive skin, the same stubborn curl at the hairline. My curl. I printed everything, the printer's whine echoing through the silent house. Downstairs, I heard Mom's muffled voice on the phone, then Dad's heavier tread on the stairs. I closed the laptop, slid the pages into the same manila envelope I'd stolen from the safe years ago for tax forms, and waited. No one knocked. Sleep never came. I sat at the attic window watching headlights sweep the cul-de-sac, replaying memories through a new filter. The way Mom flinched when I asked about baby pictures, hers were pristine in leather albums, mine started at age 3, with a forced smile in front of a Christmas tree. The pediatrician who'd asked strange questions about early milestones. Questions Mom answered with clipped efficiency. The family reunion where Great Aunt Linda had stared too long and said, "She doesn't look like either of you." I'd laughed it off then. Now it felt like prophecy. At 4:17 a.m., I opened the speech file and rewrote the opening paragraph. No more veiled gratitude. The dedication would be a mirror, and they would see themselves clearly for the first time. I saved the draft, encrypted it, and emailed a copy to my professor advisor with the subject line, "Contingency." If anything happened to my laptop, the words would survive. Morning arrived with forced cheer. The kitchen smelled of bacon and nerves. Bella descended in her Vanderbilt gown, gold cords swinging like medals. Mom adjusted the hood with trembling fingers, cooing about how the photographer would capture the light. Dad snapped photos on his phone, directing Bella to turn left, then right, then tilt her chin. I stood in the doorway in jeans and a wrinkled blouse, my own gown still in its plastic bag. No one noticed until I cleared my throat. "Ready?" Dad asked finally, looking at me. His eyes flicked to the garment bag, then away. "Been ready," I said. Mom handed Bella a bouquet of white roses. "For the graduate," she said, kissing Bella's cheek. My hands stayed empty. The drive to campus was a replay of rehearsal day, only worse. Bella narrated her summer internship plans, some senator's office, a condo in D.C., while Mom nodded along, eyes shining. Dad asked if I needed gas money for the ride home after the ceremony. I told him I'd take the bus. Silence swallowed the rest of the trip. Parking was chaos, families spilling across the lawn with lawn chairs and coolers. I carried my gown over one arm, the envelope of documents in my backpack like contraband. Mom linked arms with Bella, steering her toward the graduate check-in tent. Dad trailed behind, checking his watch. I followed at a distance, watching strangers hug their children, watching cameras flash, watching the world celebrate what my parents had chosen to ignore. Inside the staging area, graduates milled in black polyester laughter echoing off cinderblock walls. I found my name tag, valedictorian, and pinned it on the plastic cool against my fingers. A volunteer handed me a bottle of water and a schedule. "You're after the president's welcome," she said. 15 minutes. Break a leg. I nodded, throat dry. Bella appeared beside me, adjusting her cords. "Try not to trip on the steps," she said, voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "Wouldn't want to ruin the photos." Mom materialized, fussing with Bella's tassel, then turned to me with a tight smile. "Stand up straight, Alex, and remember, keep it uplifting." She didn't wait for a reply. I slipped into the restroom, locked a stall, and opened the envelope. The adoption decree stared back the judge's signature, bold and final. I traced the date, February 14th, Valentine's Day. A joke, maybe, or a promise. I folded the papers small, tucked them into the lining of my gown where the zipper created a hidden pocket. Evidence and armor in one. Back in the hallway, the processional music started. Graduates lined up by height, then by honor cords. I took my place near the front, the weight of the documents grounding me. Bella was 3 rows back, surrounded by Vanderbilt friends, their laughter bright and careless. Mom and Dad would be in the VIP section, programs open to Bella's bio. Let them look. The auditorium doors swung wide. Sunlight poured through high windows, dust motes dancing like confetti. We marched into the swell of organ music, the audience rising in a wave. I felt the envelope shift against my ribs with every step. The stage-loomed microphone gleaming like a blade. I took my seat on the dais, hands folded, and scanned the crowd. Mom sat center aisle, clutching her program, eyes fixed on Bella. Dad checked his phone. Bella waved to someone in the balcony. The president spoke then, the alumni chair words about legacy and service washing over me like rain on glass. My turn approached. The commencement director gave me the nod. I stood smoothing my gown, the hidden papers rustling softly. Today, the truth begins its escape. I thought the vow settling in my bones like steel. The president introduced me, our valedictorian Alexandra Harper, recipient of the President's Award for Overcoming Adversity. Polite applause rippled. I climbed the 3 steps to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out over the sea of faces. As my name echoed through the speakers one final time, I stepped forward and locked eyes with someone in the front row I didn't expect to see. The stranger in the front row was Maria Moretti, the woman whose name had been stamped on my original birth certificate. Her dark eyes locked on mine with a recognition that punched the air from my lungs. She wore a simple navy dress, hair pulled back in a low knot, the resemblance so stark that several heads turned between us like spectators at a tennis match. My fingers tightened on the podium's edge, the hidden documents pressing against my ribs like a second heartbeat. I forced my gaze past her, sweeping the auditorium, and began. Good afternoon, classmates, families, faculty, and friends. Today we stand at the threshold of what's next, carrying with us the invisible architecture of how we arrived here. My voice carried steady through the speakers, practiced from 100 rehearsals, but the words now tasted different, edged with something sharper than gratitude. Some of us were lifted by hands that never let go. Hands that braided our hair before recitals, packed lunches with notes of encouragement, drove through blizzards to make parent-teacher nights. Those hands taught us that love is a verb, active and loud, a daily choice to see and be seen. I paused, letting the silence settle. The audience leaned forward as one organism programs lowering phones forgotten. In the third row, Mom's posture stiffened, her program crumpling slightly at the edges. Dad's jaw worked, the muscle twitching the way it did when quarterly reports came in red. Others among us, I continued, voice softening to a hush that forced every ear to strain, were shaped by those who looked away. Not with malice, perhaps, but with a quiet, relentless absence. The empty chair at the science fair, the unopened email about the scholarship essay, the birthday card with a $20 bill and no signature. These absences are architects too. They teach us to build our own scaffolding, to hammer nails with teeth clenched against the wind, to measure success not in applause, but in survival. A low murmur rippled through the graduates. Someone in the balcony sniffled. I felt Maria's gaze like sunlight on my skin, unwavering. I did not look at her again. I stand here because of both, I said, letting the words ring clear. Because of the professors who stayed late to explain calculus when no one at home understood the word. Because of the janitor who slipped me vending machine quarters during all-nighters. Because of the stranger on the bus who once said, "You look like you're carrying the world, let me hold the door." These are the hands that lifted me when the ones I was born reaching for were busy elsewhere. Mom shifted in her seat, crossing and uncrossing her ankles. Dad's program now lay folded in his lap, his knuckles white. Bella stared straight ahead, lips pressed into a bloodless line. The air in the auditorium thickened, charged with the kind of silence that precedes thunder. And to those who looked away, I said, voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried to the back row, thank you as well. You taught me the weight of my own spine, the strength required to stand when no one claps. You gave me the gift of knowing exactly what I will never pass on to another soul. Some lessons are inherited, others are refused. The audience was utterly still now, a held breath. A father in the 10th row wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his suit jacket. A mother clutched her graduate's hand. I felt the words leave me like birds released from a cage circling the rafters before finding their way out. I dedicate this moment to every student who ever studied by flashlight, because the electric bill went to someone else's future. To every child who learned to forge their own signature on permission slips. To every heart that kept beating despite the silence it echoed into. We are here. We are enough. And today the world finally looks our way. Applause started slow, then swelled. Not the polite patter of obligation, but something raw and rolling, graduates on their feet. Strangers embracing. I stood in the eye of it, chest heaving, the documents against my skin now warm with my own heat. Mom's face had gone ashen. Dad stared at the floor. Bella's eyes glistened, but whether from anger or something else I couldn't tell. The president rose to shake my hand, his smile tight with something that might have been fear. I stepped back from the microphone, the echo of my own voice still vibrating in my teeth. The commencement director moved to transition to the next speaker, but Dr. Ellison, the principal, was already striding across the stage, his face flushed beneath the lights. He reached for the microphone stand, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, he cleared his throat, a sharp, involuntary sound that cut through the lingering applause like a blade. Then the principal cleared his throat and turned directly toward my mother. Dr. Ellison's throat clear cracked like a starter pistol. But instead of taking the microphone, he pivoted on the polished stage and stared straight at Mom, his face a mask of forced calm. The auditorium's applause died mid-wave, replaced by a rustle of confusion. Mom's chin lifted in defiance, but her fingers worried the program into a crumpled fan. Dad's hand hovered near her elbow, uncertain whether to steady or restrain. I stood frozen at the podium, pulse drumming in my ears, every rehearsed line evaporating under the sudden spotlight of the principal's gaze. Then the commencement director, pale beneath her stage makeup, darted from the wings and whispered something urgent in Dr. Ellison's ear. He nodded once sharp, and the massive projection screen behind me flickered to life with a soft electronic chime. The first slide appeared without introduction, an official College Board score report dated August 2021. Bella Harper, SAT 1590. The numbers glowed crimson against a white background, too perfect, too round. A collective inhale sucked the oxygen from the room. I hadn't cued this. The tech booth was supposed to stay dark until diplomas. My stomach lurched as the slide transitioned on its own, revealing an email chain. Sender admissions at vanderbilt.edu. Subject confirmation of legacy enhancement gift. The body read in crisp black font. We are pleased to acknowledge the Harper family's $250,000 pledge to the Commodore Excellence Fund. In recognition, Isabella Harper's application will receive priority review. The date stamp matched Bella's early decision acceptance. Gasps rippled outward like rings from a stone dropped in still water. Phones rose in a forest of trembling hands. I turned to the screen, heart hammering, and watched the next slide load, a scanned check from Harper Realty Trust payable to Vanderbilt University, memo line blank, except for the amount $250,000. Dad's signature sprawled across the bottom, the same looping cursive I'd seen on every childhood permission slip. Mom's name appeared as co-signer in smaller, tighter script. The screen advanced again. A second score report. This one flagged by the College Board's Integrity Unit. Same name, same test date, but the score read 1210. A red banner screamed, "Verified duplicate submission. Original score. Superseded." Beneath it, an internal Vanderbilt memo. Per donor agreement, updated transcript, reflects enhanced metrics. Original file archived. The timestamp was 2 days after the check cleared. I hadn't planned this. The evidence was mine. I'd collected it over months, screenshots tucked in encrypted folders labeled receipts. But I'd intended to speak the truth, not broadcast it. Someone else had hijacked the presentation, and the realization hit like ice water. The tech director had received an anonymous USB drive that morning, slipped into her mailbox with a single post-it play after valedictorian. The auditorium erupted. A father in the balcony shouted, "That's fraud!" A graduate near the aisle stood, fists clenched. They bought her spot. The accusation ricocheted off the rafters. Bella remained seated, but her shoulders curled inward, the gold cords around her neck suddenly garish. Mom's face drained of color, lips parting in a silent no. Dad's hand finally landed on her arm, gripping hard enough to blanch the skin. I found my voice, though it emerged hoarse. "These documents," I said, gesturing to the screen, "are public record. The donation is itemized in Vanderbilt's annual report." The score discrepancy was flagged by the testing agency itself. I didn't need to raise my voice. The microphone carried every syllable into the stunned silence. My parents believed one daughter's future was worth a $250,000 investment. They believed the other daughter's future was worth nothing. The slide changed once more, this time to a text exchange. Bella's number at the top dated the night before her early decision deadline. Mom's scores updated. "You're in. Delete this thread." Bella's reply, a single thumbs-up emoji. The timestamp glowed like the message had been read and deleted within seconds. Bella's complicity captured in digital ink. Bella's head dropped, chin to chest, the curtain of blonde hair hiding her face. Her hands clenched in her lap, knuckles white. The audience's shock turned visceral. Someone booed. A mother near the front covered her child's ears as if the truth itself were profane. I watched Bella's shoulders shake, not with sobs, but with the effort of holding herself together. She had known. She had agreed. Her silence hadn't been ignorance. It had been strategy. Dr. Ellison finally seized the microphone, voice booming. "This is highly irregular." But the screen ignored him, advancing to a final image, the Vanderbilt Honor Code, Bella's signature scrawled at the bottom of her admission contract, pledging integrity in all academic and personal endeavors. The irony hung in the air like smoke. I stepped forward, reclaiming the podium. Integrity isn't selective. I said the words steady now, forged in the fire of the moment. It isn't a donation line item. My sister knew the price of her admission. She chose to pay it with silence while I paid with every shift, every scholarship application, every night I went hungry so the electric bill could wait. My voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't look away from Bella. She didn't look up. The applause that followed was not for me. It was a release, a collective exhale of outrage and solidarity. Graduates stood again, this time in waves, their black gowns a tide of judgment. Mom's program fell to the floor, forgotten. Dad stared at the screen as if it might change if he willed it hard enough. Then a voice rose from the audience, clear and cutting, a woman in the 5th row, standing with her phone still recording. But what if your sister knew all along? The woman's question hung in the air like a match struck in a powder room, and the auditorium ignited. The first whisper came from the row behind her, sharp and incredulous. She knew it, spread outward in a hiss that grew teeth. They paid for her scores, $250,000. Her own sister. Phones lifted in a synchronized wave, red recording lights blinking like accusatory eyes. Someone in the balcony shouted, "That's not legacy, that's laundering." Laughter cracked, bitter and disbelieving. A graduate near the aisle stood on her chair gown, billowing, and yelled, "How many of us lost spots to that?" The sound system squealed with feedback as hundreds of voices collided. I gripped the podium, knuckles aching, the storm I had unleashed now feeding on itself. Dr. Ellison tried to reclaim order, arms raised like a referee, but the crowd had slipped its leash. A father in a navy blazer pushed to the front, phone aloft, live streaming to who knows how many. State University. Everybody. Where integrity goes to die. Cheers and boos braided together. Security guards appeared at the doors, uncertain whether to corral or protect. In the 3rd row, my family fractured in real time. Mom surged to her feet, program shredded in her fist, face blotched crimson. She leaned across the aisle toward me, voice a venomous hiss that somehow cut through the din. "You will regret this, Alexandra. I'll have your degree revoked before sunset." The threat landed like spit, but the microphone caught it, amplified it, and the nearest section recoiled as one. Dad remained seated, statue still, eyes fixed on the carpet as if the pattern might rearrange itself into an escape route. His silence was louder than any shout. Bella finally moved. She unfolded from her chair, gold cords tangling, and took one stumbling step into the aisle. Tears streaked her mascara in perfect black rivers, but her voice cracked the room open. I was scared to lose everything. The confession tore out of her, raw and ragged, aimed at no one and everyone. They said it was the only way. I didn't want to disappoint you. She spun toward Mom, hands outstretched. You told me it was normal, that everyone does it. Mom recoiled as if slapped, then hissed again, lower. Sit down, Isabella, you're embarrassing yourself. But Bella's knees buckled. She sank to the carpet, shoulders heaving, the Vanderbilt stole pooling around her like spilled champagne. The outrage crested. A cluster of honors students near the stage began chanting, slow and deliberate. Truth, truth, truth. Others joined the rhythm, pounding against the rafters. Phones flashed in staccato bursts, capturing Mom's livid face. Dad's paralysis. Bella's collapse. A local news van's satellite dish was already visible through the lobby windows, red light blinking. Someone had called them. The story was metastasizing in real time. I felt the first wave of vindication crash over me, warm and dizzying. It wasn't joy. It was gravity finally righting itself. 4 years of diner grease, of ramen dinners, of professors' side eyes when I explained why my parents never visited. All of it crystallized into this single roaring moment. The microphone trembled in my hand, but I didn't need it anymore. The audience had become the speaker, their fury my megaphone. Security edged closer, uncertain whose side to take. Dr. Ellison abandoned the stage entirely, retreating to the wings where the commencement director whispered frantically into a walkie-talkie. The chancellor stood at the edge of the dais, mouth opening and closing like a fish denied water. On the floor, Bella's sobs had quieted to hiccups. Mom crouched beside her, one hand clamped on Bella's wrist, the other shielding her own face from the cameras. Dad still hadn't moved, but a single tear tracked down his cheek, catching the stage lights like a diamond. A graduate in the front row turned to me, eyes shining. "You okay?" she mouthed. I nodded once, the motion small but seismic. Another handed me a water bottle. I drank without tasting. The chanting softened, replaced by a restless hum, the crowd waiting for the next shoe to drop. Phones kept recording. The live stream counters I glimpsed on nearby screens climbed past 10,000 2050. My name trended before I'd left the stage. Mom straightened, smoothing her skirt with mechanical precision. She met my eyes across the chaos, and for the first time I saw fear. Real animal fear flicker behind the fury. She mouthed something I couldn't read, then pulled Bella to her feet. Dad finally stood robotic and placed a hand on each of their shoulders, steering them toward the side exit. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, booze trailing them like smoke. Bella stumbled, stole, dragging on the floor. Mom's grip looked painful now, possessive. I watched them go, vindication settling into something colder, more deliberate. The storm had broken, but the lightning was still mine to direct. Dr. Ellison re-emerged, face slick with sweat, and approached the microphone with the caution of a bomb tech. The auditorium quieted to a tense murmur, sensing the script had flipped again. He tapped the mic twice, the thud echoing, then forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The principal walked back to the microphone and said, "Now I'll announce the special award recipient." The principal's words sliced through the lingering chaos like a conductor's baton, and the auditorium's restless energy pivoted toward the stage. Dr. Ellison adjusted his tie, the fabric trembling slightly under his fingers, and continued. In a tradition spanning 3 decades, the Chancellor's Medal is bestowed upon one graduate whose journey embodies resilience, scholarship, and service beyond measure. This year, the selection committee reviewed hundreds of nominees, but one story rose above the rest. He paused, letting the suspense thicken, then turned to me with a smile that looked almost relieved. "Alexandra Harper, please accept the Chancellor's Medal and a full-ride scholarship to any master's program within the university system." The announcement landed like a thunderclap in reverse. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then applause exploded, not the polite patter of obligation, but a roar that rattled the rafters. Graduates surged to their feet again, this time for me, their cheers layered with something fiercer than celebration, solidarity, maybe even triumph. I stood rooted to the podium, the weight of the moment pressing against my chest. The Chancellor himself ascended the steps, a silver-haired man in academic regalia, carrying a velvet box and a crystal trophy that caught the stage lights like a prism. He opened the box to reveal the medal, a heavy gold disc engraved with the university's seal suspended from a ribbon of deep crimson. "Alex," he said, voice warm through the microphone, "your academic record is exemplary, but it's your character that distinguishes you. From community college transfer to summa cum laude, from leading the literacy outreach program to mentoring first-generation students, you have turned every obstacle into opportunity. This medal is yours. The scholarship, tuition fees, and stipend for 2 years is our investment in the leader you've already become." He draped the ribbon around my neck, the medal settling cool and solid against my collarbone. The trophy followed its base, surprisingly heavy. A sealed envelope tucked discreetly into a velvet-lined compartment beneath the crystal. I caught the word "confidential" stamped in red before the Chancellor closed the lid with a soft click. Cameras flashed. The Jumbotron replayed the moment in slow motion, my face filling the screen, eyes wide with disbelief. The applause rolled on, wave after wave. I searched the 3rd row and found my family frozen in their seats, the eye of the storm. Mom's hands rose mechanically, clapping with the precision of a metronome, but her smile was a rictus lips, bloodless. Dad followed suit, palms meeting in slow, deliberate motions, his gaze fixed somewhere above my head, as if the ceiling might offer absolution. Bella's glare cut through the noise like a laser eye's narrowed jaw clenched the gold cords around her neck, now a noose of her own making. Her applause was non-existent. Her fingers curled into fists on her lap, knuckles blanching. The contrast was stark my moment, their captivity. I lifted the trophy in acknowledgement, the medal swinging with the motion, and the crowd's response intensified. A chant started in the graduate section. Alex, Alex spreading until even parents joined in. The sound wrapped around me like armor. For the first time, the balance of recognition had flipped entirely. The spotlight that had always favored Bella now burned solely on me, and the heat felt like justice. Dr. Ellison reclaimed the microphone, voice steadier now. The Chancellor's medal includes a ceremonial luncheon with the Board of Trustees tomorrow, where Alex will share her vision for the scholarship's impact. He gestured toward the wings where a photographer waited. But first, let's give her another round of applause. The ovation crested again louder, as if the auditorium itself refused to let the moment end. I descended the steps, medal clinking softly against the trophy. The envelope's presence, a secret pulse against my palm. Security parted the crowd, creating a corridor to the graduate seating. Classmates reached out, high fives, hugs, tear-streaked grins. "You earned this one," whispered. "They can't take it away," another added. I nodded, throat too tight for words, the weight of their belief anchoring me. My family remained in their row, an island of tension amid the tide. Mom's clapping had slowed to a halt. She stared at the medal as if it were an accusation. Dad's hands dropped to his knees, shoulders rounded. Bella's glare had softened into something raw envy, yes, but laced with the dawning realization that the narrative had shifted irrevocably. She looked smaller in her gown, the Vanderbilt crest on her sleeve suddenly garish against the sea of black. The Chancellor guided me to a reserved seat on the dais, the trophy on my lap like a sleeping child. The ceremony resumed, diplomas, honors cords, the methodical rhythm of names. But the energy had changed. Whispers followed me. "That's her. The one who called them out. Full ride, can you imagine?" I felt the medal's weight with every breath, a tangible reversal of every dismissal, every empty chair. Empty. As the final graduates crossed the stage, the envelope inside the trophy base seemed to grow heavier. I traced the seal with my thumb, the word confidential, a promise, and a threat. The luncheon tomorrow would be public ceremonial. Whatever waited inside was meant for me alone. I glanced at my family one last time. Mom's eyes were fixed on the exit, calculating escape. Dad's head was bowed. Bella's glare had dissolved into a blank stare, her future unraveling in real time. The president returned to close the ceremony, but the applause for me lingered, a low rumble beneath his words. When the recessional music began, I stood with the medal around my neck and the trophy in my arms, the envelope's secret burning against my skin. The balance had flipped and the fall was only beginning. Inside the award envelope was something she didn't expect, a sealed letter marked confidential. The envelope was heavier than paper should be, its wax seal, a blood-red coin pressed into the flap. I slipped away from the post-ceremony crush medal, clinking against the trophy, as I ducked into a side corridor lined with faculty portraits. The hallway smelled of old varnish and lemon polish. The noise of celebration muffled behind the double doors. My fingers found the seal's edge and pried. The wax cracked with a soft pop, releasing a faint scent of cedar. Inside lay a single sheet of letterhead from the University Board of Trustees, the embossed crest gleaming under the sconce light. I unfolded it with the care of someone diffusing a device, and the words hit like a slap. "Dear Ms. Harper." It began the salutation typed in crisp serif. "At the request of the Chancellor, we disclose the following in recognition of your exemplary service and the events of today's commencement." My pulse thudded in my ears. The letter continued in measured legal cadence. "On March 15th, 2021, The Office of Financial Aid received a directive from the Development Office to reallocate the Presidential Merit Scholarship originally awarded to Alexandra M. Harper, applicant ID 1184703. The scholarship, valued at $18,000 annually, was reassigned to Isabella R. Harper, applicant ID 19474, pursuant to a $250,000 pledge from Harper Realty Trust, earmarked for the Commodore Excellence Fund at Vanderbilt University. Time-stamped approval, March 16, 2021, 09:47 a.m. EDT. Rationale: to consolidate family giving and maximize institutional impact. I read the paragraph twice, the date searing into memory. March 15th was the day I'd received the email congratulating me on the Presidential Merit full tuition renewable for 4 years contingent on maintaining a 3.5 GPA. I'd printed it, highlighted the dollar amount, and left it on the kitchen counter where Mom couldn't miss it. By morning, it was gone, replaced by a post-it. We need to talk. The talk never happened. Instead, I'd been offered work study and a smaller need-based grant, the advisor citing budget reallocation due to unexpected enrollment. I'd swallowed the loss, taken extra shifts, told myself it was fair. The letter laid out the mechanics with surgical precision. Attached were scanned emails, one from Dad to the development officer, subject line: Harper family commitment. Urgent, sent March 14, 2021. 11:23 p.m. Confirm Bella's slot in the honors dorm and priority registration. The check clears tomorrow. The reply, time-stamped March 15, 08:12 a.m. Done. Scholarship line item adjusted per your request. Original recipient will be notified of alternate funding. My name appeared in the CC field, grayed out as if I were an afterthought. A second attachment showed the check's deposit confirmation, the funds routed through a shell account labeled Legacy Enhancement Initiative. The final page was a redacted contract, the clause unredacted in bold. In exchange for the pledge, the university agrees to guarantee admission and merit aid for the designated beneficiary, Isabella Harper, and to redirect equivalent aid from any conflicting Harper family applicant. I leaned against the wall, the trophies crystal cool against my thigh. The betrayal was layered, institutional, and meticulously documented. They hadn't just favored Bella. They'd engineered my exclusion with spreadsheets and signatures. The scholarship I'd lost wasn't pocket change. It was the difference between sleeping in the library and sleeping in a dorm, between skipping meals and eating 3 squares, between graduating with debt and graduating free. Every late-night shift, every ramen dinner, every time I'd told myself I was building character had been orchestrated by a single phone call and a $250,000 check. My breath came shallow, then steadied. I folded the letter along its creases, the paper crisp as frost. The corridor's silence pressed in, broken only by distant laughter echoing from the reception. I pictured Mom's face when the screen had flashed the Vanderbilt donation, shock, yes, but not surprise. She'd known the terms. Dad's frozen stillness suddenly made sense. He'd signed the directive himself. And Bella had walked into orientation with my scholarship in her pocket, smiling for the cameras while I scrubbed grease from under my nails. I opened my phone, photographed each page, and uploaded the files to a cloud drive labeled Insurance. The metal around my neck felt heavier now, not with honor, but with leverage. The Chancellor's full-ride master's scholarship was generous, but this letter transformed it into ammunition. The board had handed me the smoking gun wrapped in official letterhead and sealed with their own wax. Footsteps approached, heels on tile, measured and familiar. I slipped the letter back into the envelope, tucked it into the trophy's base, and stepped into the light. The commencement director rounded the corner, clipboard in hand. Alex, the photographers need you for the medal portrait. Her smile was bright, oblivious. I nodded, the expression on my face calm, almost serene. As I followed her back toward the reception, the icy purpose settled in my chest like a blade sliding home. The ceremony had been the opening act. This letter was the script for what came next. I rehearsed the steps in my mind: the alumni network, the student paper, the Title IX office that handled financial aid ethics. The university had chosen sides once. Now they would learn the cost of choosing wrong. The reception hall buzzed with congratulations graduates toasting with plastic cups of sparkling cider. I accepted handshakes posed for photos, the metal flashing under chandeliers. Mom and Dad stood near the dessert table flanked by security, their faces masks of strained politeness. Bella was gone, escorted out. Someone whispered after hyperventilating in the lobby. I met Mom's eyes across the room. She looked away first. A trustee approached, champagne flute in hand. Remarkable speech, Ms. Harper. The board is impressed. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I returned it, the letters weight a secret heartbeat against my palm. Thank you, I said. There's more to come. She tucked the letter away and for the first time smiled not from joy, but from certainty. The certainty in my smile lingered like frost on glass as I drove home, alone, the trophy riding shotgun, its crystal facets catching the setting sun in sharp prisms. The university reception had stretched into evening handshakes from deans, business cards from alumni donors, the chancellor's personal invitation to a private dinner next week, but I'd excused myself early citing family obligations. The truth was simpler, I needed space to plan. The letter from the board burned in the trophy's base, a blueprint for escalation. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house lights glowed through the curtains like wary eyes. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of roasting chicken and unspoken accusations. Mom had set the table with the good china, the pattern with gold rims she reserved for holidays, and Bella's high school awards dinners. Dad sat at the head napkin folded precisely on his lap, staring at his water glass as if it held the answers to quarterly taxes. Bella slumped in her chair, Vanderbilt gown discarded like shed skin, her face puffy from crying. No one spoke when I entered. I placed the trophy on the sideboard with deliberate care, the metal still around my neck catching the chandelier light. Dinner's ready, Mom said, voice clipped as she carried the platter to the table. Her eyes flicked to the trophy, then away. I took my seat opposite Bella, the wooden chair creaking under me. Forks scraped plates. The chicken was dry, the potatoes lumpy. Silence stretched, broken only by the tick of the mantel clock. Mom broke first, setting her fork down with a clink. You've made quite the spectacle, Alexandra. The words were measured, but the undercurrent was acid. The dean called. Vanderbilt's compliance office is involved now. Bella's future. She glanced at Bella, who picked at her napkin. All because you couldn't keep your grievances private. I chewed slowly, tasting nothing. Private, I echoed, like the scholarship they reassigned, or the donation that bought her spot. Mom's lips thinned. That was business. You wouldn't understand. Dad cleared his throat, but kept his eyes on his plate, pushing peas around like chess pieces. Mom pressed on, voice rising. You think this vindicates you? Embarrassing us on stage. Dragging the family name through social media, reporters are calling the house. Neighbors are asking questions. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You'll destroy everything we built for you both. Bella sniffled but said nothing. Dad's fork trembled slightly. He set it down, still avoiding my gaze. The hostility wrapped around the table like smoke, thick and choking. I let it settle, mentally cataloging what I needed next: the original scholarship award letter from my email archives, the financial aid denial notice with its vague reallocation clause, bank statements showing the Harper Realty Trust transfers. The board's letter was key, but cross-referenced with public donor reports and FOIA requests to Vanderbilt. It would form an airtight chain. I'd need witness statements too, perhaps the financial aid officer who'd processed the switch. You built nothing for me, I said finally, voice even. Mom recoiled as if slapped. You invested in Bella because she was the bloodline. I was the placeholder. Dad's shoulders tensed, but he remained silent, fork abandoned. Bella's eyes flicked up, red-rimmed, then down again. Mom's laugh was sharp, humorless. Placeholder. We adopted you out of kindness, gave you a home, a name, and this is how you repay us. Her cutting remarks landed like barbs, each one drawing invisible blood. Selfish. Ungrateful. You've ruined Bella's graduation too. The word adopted hung there the first time she'd said it aloud. I filed it away, another piece for the mosaic. Dad shifted, finally meeting the tablecloth with a murmured, "Let's not do this now." But his avoidance was complicity. His silence a wall-eyed breach later. Dinner dragged utensils clinking in the void. Mom's remarks tapered into icy commands. "Pass the salt. Clear your plate." Bella ate mechanically, tears dripping onto her napkin. I responded in monosyllables, my mind racing ahead. After the board letter, I'd need the adoption file from Cuyahoga County, full disclosure on why they'd hidden it. Then the trust documents Dad mentioned in passing years ago, the ones he'd locked in his study safe. If there was a financial trail tying the donation to my exclusion, it would be their wire transfers, memos, perhaps even emails CC'd to Vanderbilt. By dessert, store-bought pie crust crumbling like their facade, I'd outline the steps: email the student newspaper tonight, attach redacted scans, contact the Alumni Association ethics hotline at dawn, loop in Maria Moretti if she'd talk. Mom served slices with a knife that gleamed too sharply. "Eat," she said to me. "You'll need your strength for the fallout." I pushed the plate away. "I'm full." Dad's eyes darted to mine for the first time, pleading, then dropped. The hostility peaked in Mom's final jab. "Enjoy your medal. It won't pay the lawyers," Bella whispered. "Can we just go?" But no one moved. I excused myself, first trophy in hand, ascending to the attic under their stairs. The door clicked shut, and I spread my laptop on the bed, pulling up donor databases and ethics guidelines. The plans solidified midnight. When the house slept, I'd slip downstairs. Dad's study key hung on a hook by the garage door. I'd seen him use it 1,000 times. The safe combination was his birthday, simple, predictable. Whatever records he kept there would confirm the institutional strings they'd pulled. The clock ticked past 11. I waited in the dark, listening to footsteps creak. Mom and Bella retreating to bedrooms, Dad's office light flicking off. At 12:03, the house fell silent. I eased the door open, barefoot on the stairs, the trophy left behind. The study door yielded to the key with a soft snick. Moonlight slanted through blinds, illuminating the desk, the filing cabinets, the locked bottom drawer where Dad stashed sensitive files. I knelt, heart steady, and turned the dial 0 to 512. The tumblers clicked. The drawer slid open and uncovered something that changed everything. That night, in her father's study, she opened a locked drawer and uncovered something that changed everything. The drawer glided open on silent runners, revealing a stack of folders bound with rubber bands thick as wrists. My breath caught at the topmost label. Harper Trust Alexandra, handwritten in Dad's meticulous slant. Beneath it lay a second folder marked Vanderbilt, Pledge Confidential. The ink fresher. Mom's looping realtor flourish unmistakable. I lifted the trust folder first, the rubber band snapping softly as I freed the contents. A legal-sized document slid out, heavy cream stock, the seal of a Cleveland law firm embossed in gold. The irrevocable trust agreement was dated June 12, 2013. My 10th birthday. Principal, $500, $1,000. Beneficiary, Alexandra Grace Harper. Trustee, David R. Harper. Purpose: to provide educational and living expenses upon the beneficiary's 18th birthday, or upon demonstration of financial independence, whichever occurs first. Dad's signature anchored the bottom, witnessed by a notary whose stamp still gleamed. I flipped the page. Annual statements followed, each showing steady growth dividends. Reinvested bonds matured, the balance climbing past $750,000 by last quarter. A sticky note clung to the most recent page, Dad's handwriting again. Mom refused access. She rerouted funds to Bella's account, 2021. I couldn't stop her. My chest tightened. He had tried. The Vanderbilt folder came next. A single contract executed March 14, 2021 bore Mom's signature alone on the donor line. Dad's name appeared only as spousal acknowledgement, his scrawl shaky, dated a day later. The pledge, $250,000 payable in 3 installments with a rider clause. In consideration of this gift, the university agrees to award the Presidential Merit Scholarship to Isabella R. Harper and to reallocate any overlapping aid from Alexandra M. Harper to need-based pools. An attached email chain printed and highlighted showed Mom negotiating the terms with the development officer. Ensure Alex's file reflects alternate funding. She won't notice. The officer's reply: done. Her award letter will be amended by Cobb tomorrow. Timestamp March 15, 2021. 2:17 p.m. The exact hour I'd refreshed my inbox to find the scholarship vanished. I spread the documents across the carpet, moonlight striping them like prison bars. A third folder thinner held bank transfer confirmations, $100,000 wired to Vanderbilt on March 16th, another $100,000 on April 1st, the final $50,000 on Bella's move-in day. Each memo line read Harper Family Excellence Fund, but the routing numbers traced back to Mom's personal brokerage account, not the joint trust. Dad's name was absent from every transaction. She had orchestrated it solo using money she'd siphoned from the business over years. Tucked beneath the bank slips was the handwritten note folded twice the paper soft from handling. Dad's script filled the page. If you're reading this, she won. I set the trust when you were 10 because I saw how she looked at you like you were a line item to cut. I couldn't fight her openly. The business, the house, everything is in her name. But this money is yours ring-fenced. The password is your birthday backward. Use it to finish what you started. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. Love, Dad. The apology trembled on the page ink smudged where a tear had dried. My hands shook as I photographed every sheet the phone's flash stark in the dark. Close-ups of signatures. Timestamps, account numbers. Evidence now duplicated in the cloud, timestamped and encrypted. I slid the originals back exactly as found, the rubber bands snapping into place with soft thuds. The safe clicked shut. The key returned to its hook. I crept upstairs, the attic door closing with a whisper. Sleep never came. I lay in the dark, the trust's balance glowing behind my eyelids like a promise. $750,000, enough to fund the master's launch, a non-profit hire the lawyer whose card the chancellor had pressed into my hand. Mom had built her empire on exclusion. Dad had built a parachute in secret. The realization reframed every memory, his averted eyes at dinner, the way he'd slip me 20s when Mom wasn't looking, the locked drawer I'd assumed held only tax files. He hadn't been complicit. He'd been cornered. Morning light filtered through the attic skylight, gray and unforgiving. I dressed in silence jeans, the metal still around my neck like a talisman, and descended. The kitchen smelled of burnt coffee. Mom stood at the counter, back rigid, slicing strawberries with surgical precision. Dad was absent. Bella's door remained closed. I poured orange juice, the carton cold, against my palm and waited. Mom's knife paused mid-slice. Next morning, she looked her mother in the eye and said, "We need to talk. Alone." Mom's knife hovered above the strawberry juice, bleeding onto the cutting board like a tiny wound. She didn't turn, but her shoulders squared as if bracing for impact. "The study," she said, voice flat, wiping her hands on a dish towel with deliberate slowness. 5 minutes. I nodded, though she couldn't see, and climbed the stairs to Dad's office, the metal's ribbon brushing my collarbone with every step. The room still smelled of last night's intrusion, leather paper, the faint metallic tang of the safe. I left the door ajar just enough for sound to carry, and arranged the photographed documents on the desk like a deck of cards trust agreement. Vanderbilt contract, Mom's solo signatures glowing under the banker's lamp. She entered without knocking, closing the door with a soft click that felt final. Her blouse was pressed, hair twisted into a knot, but the skin under her eyes carried the bruise of sleeplessness. She took the chair opposite me, hands folded, realtor's smile in place. "Say what you need to say, Alexandra. Then we move on." I slid the trust folder forward first. "This is mine. Dated when I was 10. Dad's signature, not yours. 750,000 and change, growing while you told me the budget was tight. Her gaze flicked to the balance sheet, then away, lips thinning. I pushed the Vanderbilt contract next. Your pledge. Your rider clause. Your rerouting of my scholarship. Dad's name appears once as witness. You acted alone. Mom leaned back, arms crossing. I protected this family. Bella is my real daughter. Blood legacy. Everything you aren't. You were a charity case we took in. I gave you a home, a name, opportunities you never earned. That money was leveraged to secure her future, not a gift for you to squander on public university pipe dreams. The words landed like calculated blows, each one meant to stagger. I didn't flinch. You forged the path with lies. Told Bella I was the obstacle, the reason resources were scarce. Told advisors I'd decline the merit aid. I tapped the email printout. Time-stamped proof. You didn't protect anyone. You manufactured scarcity so Bella would never question why I worked doubles while she flew first class to sorority formals. Her laugh was sharp, humorless. You think money grows on trees? Every dollar into Vanderbilt was an investment in connections in doors that open for Harper women. You chose community college night shifts drama. Bella chose excellence. I simply removed the distraction. From the hallway came a soft gasp, barely audible. The door creaked wider. Bella stood there still in yesterday's sweatpants, hair tangled, eyes swollen. She'd heard every word. Mom's head snapped toward her. Isabella, go back to bed. Bella didn't move. Tears welled, spilled, tracked clean paths through the salt on her cheeks. You told me she abandoned us, she whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. That she didn't want the scholarship, didn't want us. You said if I didn't take it, we'd lose everything. She took a stumbling step inside, hands clenched at her sides. All those years, I thought she was selfish, jealous, choosing to struggle. You made me hate her for something you did. Mom rose, chair scraping. You don't understand the pressure. I understand enough. Bella's shout echoed off the bookshelves. She turned to me, tears streaming freely now. I believed you didn't care. I believed the lies. Her voice broke on the last word, loyalty fracturing like glass under a hammer. For the first time, she looked at me not with rivalry, but with the raw ache of betrayal. As Bella burst into tears, she uttered, "You told me she gave up on us." The words left Bella's lips like a shard of glass, and the study froze around them. Mom's face drained to the color of old parchment, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Bella's shoulders shook with sobs that seemed to pull the air from the room. I sat motionless, the documents spread between us like a battlefield map, the weight of her confessions settling over me not as victory, but as a strange, hollow grief. Mom reached for Bella's arm, but Bella jerked away, backing into the hallway as if the walls themselves might burn her. The door to her room slammed upstairs, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Mom stared after her, then at me, eyes blazing with something between fury and fear. "This isn't over," she hissed and fled the study, her heels stabbing the hardwood all the way to the kitchen. I gathered the papers with steady hands, the trust agreement crisp under my fingertips, and returned to the attic. The house felt like a bomb-site silence ringing in the aftermath. My phone buzzed incessantly. Classmates' reporters. The student paper editor begging for an interview. I ignored them all, opened my laptop and began typing. The alumni magazine had a submission portal for graduate reflections. I titled the piece "Merit Money and the Cost of Silence," attached redacted scans of the Vanderbilt contract and the board's letter, and hit send before doubt could creep in. By noon, the editor emailed back, running in the fall issue. Front cover. I forwarded the thread to the local TV station's investigative unit, the one that had covered financial aid scandals before. Their reply came within minutes. On our way. The story broke that afternoon. The station's teaser ran during the 5 o'clock news. State University valedictorian exposes family fraud in commencement speech, donor dollars. By grades. My phone footage from the ceremony, now viral, played in split screen with the documents. The anchor's voice was grave. Sources confirm. Vanderbilt has launched an internal investigation into the Harper donation. By evening, the alumni magazine rushed an online preview, my byline, bold beneath the headline. Social media erupted, hashtag Harper Truth trending nationwide. Strangers tagging the university president, alumni threatening to withhold pledges. The power shift was immediate, visceral. My inbox filled with interview requests, scholarship offers from rival schools, messages from adopted students sharing their own stories of exclusion. The university's PR office issued a statement. We take allegations of aid manipulation seriously and have initiated a full review. Behind the scenes, I learned later the compliance office scrambled, pulling Bella's file cross-referencing donor logs. Within 48 hours, Vanderbilt announced her suspension, effective immediately, 1 academic year pending appeal. The email to Bella was leaked online. Violation of honor code, submission of falsified credentials. Her Instagram went dark. Her sorority sisters unfollowed in waves. Mom became a pariah overnight. The country club removed her from the charity auction committee. Neighbors crossed the street when she walked the dog. Real estate listings slowed clients, citing optics concerns. She stopped answering the door curtains, drawn the house a fortress under siege. Dad retreated to his office, emerging only for coffee, his silence now a public admission. I moved through it all with a calm that surprised even me, fielding calls from journalists, consulting pro bono lawyers who specialized in education fraud. The medal around my neck no longer felt like decoration. It was currency. The tipping point came on the third morning. I was in the kitchen pouring cereal I wouldn't eat when my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered on instinct. Alexandra Harper. The voice was deep familiar from donor galas. This is Richard Lang, chairman of the State University Board of Trustees. We need to speak. Privately. I gripped the counter, pulse steady. I'm listening. Not over the phone. My office tomorrow, 9 sharp. Bring whatever you have. The board is prepared to act decisively. He paused, the silence heavy. What we're offering, it's unprecedented. But the institution must restore trust, and you're the only one who can help us do it. Then the chairman of the university board called, and what he offered was unprecedented. Richard Lang's office occupied the top floor of the administration building, a corner suite with panoramic views of the campus I'd fought to afford. I arrived at 8:57, portfolio in hand, the metal tucked beneath my blouse like body armor. His assistant waved me through without a word. Lang stood behind a mahogany desk, silver hair catching the morning light, tie the same crimson as the university's colors. He didn't offer a handshake. Instead, he gestured to a leather chair and slid a thick folder across the polished surface. Before we discuss restitution, he said, voice gravelly from decades of boardroom battles, there's something you need to see. I opened the folder. Inside lay a trust instrument dated January 3, 2008, the year I turned 5. Irrevocable. Principal $1 million seeded from Dad's premarital inheritance and quietly compounded in municipal bonds. Beneficiary Alexandra Grace Harper. Trustee a Cleveland fiduciary firm independent of family control. The signature page bore Dad's bold script, witnessed by the same notary who'd stamped my 10th birthday trust. A rider clause glowed in highlighter, mother's access denied without beneficiary consent upon majority. Lang leaned forward. Your father created this before the adoption was finalized. He anticipated resistance. Your mother discovered it in 2021, attempted to dissolve it through litigation, but the court upheld irrevocability. She blocked access by refusing to disclose existence. The funds, now valued at $1.4 million, transfer to you today. My lungs forgot their rhythm. $1 million hidden since I was in kindergarten, growing while I scraped change for bus fare. Lang pushed a pen toward me. Sign the acknowledgement. The wire initiates at close of business. I scrawled my name, the ink bleeding slightly where my hand trembled. He added, the board also offers a formal apology, a named professorship in ethics, and your choice of graduate program fully endowed. We want the story to end with restoration, not scandal. I left the building lighter, the trust's confirmation burning in my pocket like a second heartbeat. That afternoon, I signed with a literary agent who'd been courting me since the speech went viral. The memoir poured out in 6 months' nights, in the attic days in coffee shops, every diner shift, and silent dinner distilled into chapters. I titled it, The Price of Silence. The redacted line on the final page had been a placeholder, a promise to myself, one secret held back until the story could carry it. The book launched to pre-orders that crashed the publisher's server. Within weeks, it hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, the cover photo my graduation portrait medal, gleaming eyes steady. Reviews called it a masterclass in resilience, the adoption memoir that rewrote family law. Book tour stops filled auditoriums. Adopted students lined up with dog-eared copies sharing stories of their own hidden trusts and redirected futures. I established a foundation with the Trust's interest funding college prep for foster youth. The principal grew faster than I could spend it. Bella's restart began quietly. Vanderbilt readmitted her after the suspension, but she transferred to the local community college, working evenings at a campus bookstore. She sent a letter, handwritten, no return address, apologizing for the years she'd believed Mom's narrative. "I thought you chose distance," she wrote. "I see now you were pushed. We met once at a neutral diner, coffee cooling between us. No hugs, no absolution, just the slow thaw of truth." Mom retreated further, selling the house, moving to a condo under her maiden name. Dad filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, and moved into a small apartment near the lake. He attended one book signing, standing at the back in a windbreaker, eyes wet when I read the dedication to the father who built bridges in secret. The final twist arrived in proofs. The redacted line, blacked out in galleys to protect Dad's privacy, was restored in the hardcover. On the last page of the book, one line remains redacted until now. My father never stopped fighting for me. The line sat unredacted on the final page, ink still wet from the printer's proof. And when the first hardcover arrived at my new apartment, I traced the words with a fingertip until they blurred. My father never stopped fighting for me. The sentence carried the weight of every silent 20 slipped into my palm, every locked drawer, every trust seated before I could spell my own name. I closed the book, set it on the shelf beside the Chancellor's medal, and turned to the work that had already begun. The Alexandra Grace Harper Scholarship launched quietly in the fall, funded by the Trust's first disbursement and matched by the university's restitution endowment. We targeted adopted students facing sudden crisis foster system exits, medical emergencies, families who vanished overnight. The application was simple. 1 essay, no transcripts required, just proof of legal adoption and a single letter explaining the cliff they stood on. The first recipient was a 17-year-old from Toledo, whose adoptive parents died in a car crash. We covered her senior year dorm books and a laptop. By spring 23, awards were active, each named for a donor who'd read the memoir and wanted in. I hired a part-time coordinator, a former foster youth herself, and we met weekly in a campus office painted the soft blue of hospital blankets, the color of second chances. Bella's letter arrived in March, postmarked from the Community College Mailbox Center. The envelope was plain, the handwriting careful but unfamiliar. Inside 3 pages on lined notebook paper, Alex. I've started this a dozen times and thrown them all away. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even asking for it. I just need you to know. I see it now, the stories Mom fed me, the way she made your struggle look like choice. I believed her because it was easier than admitting I was coasting on lies. I'm taking one class at a time, paying with bookstore wages, living in a studio that smells like old pizza. It's humbling and I deserve every second of it. If you ever want coffee, no agenda, I'll be at the corner diner on 5th Saturdays at 10. If not, I'll understand. Bella. I read it twice, folded it small, and tucked it into the memoir beside Dad's note. The following Saturday I went. She was already there, hair in a messy bun, nursing black coffee. We spoke of logistics, her class schedule, my foundation board meetings, then of nothing at all, the silence companionable for the first time. We met again the next month, then the next. Respect grew in increments, a shared laugh over burnt toast, a text when her car wouldn't start my name on her emergency contact form. No grand reconciliation, just the slow erosion of old walls. Mom vanished into quiet exile. The condo sold within weeks. Rumor placed her in a gated community in Florida golf cart, included mail forwarded under her maiden name. Dad sent a postcard from his lake apartment sunset, over water, no message beyond a phone number. I called once. We spoke of weather, of the Browns' losing streak, of the trust's latest statement. He asked if I needed anything. I said I had everything. The conversation ended with a promise to try dinner soon, neither of us pushing for more. I chose my family deliberately. Maria Moretti became a monthly email correspondent. Her stories of Cleveland winters filling gaps I hadn't known were empty. The foundation staff turned into Tuesday night takeout companions. Dad attended the first scholarship ceremony, standing at the back, in the same windbreaker, clapping hardest when the Toledo girl accepted her certificate. Bella sat 2 rows ahead, eyes shining with something like pride. The memoir's paperback released with a new afterword, a photo of the 23 scholars, their names listed like a roll call of futures reclaimed. Royalties funded a second cohort. Speaking invitations poured in TED stages, women's shelters, adoption agencies. I accepted the ones that fit between foundation deadlines, declining the rest with a polite form letter. My apartment filled with plants I remembered to water, books I read for pleasure, a calendar marked in color-coded ink. One evening in late summer, I stood on the balcony watching fireflies blink across the quad. The trust statement had arrived that morning, another 6 figures in growth, enough to endow the scholarship in perpetuity. Bella texted a photo, her first A in statistics, captioned simply, "Progress." Dad called to say he'd frame the group photo from the ceremony. Maria sent a care package, pierogies, and a note that said, "You were always mine, even when the papers said otherwise." I leaned against the railing, the night air cool against my skin, and felt the story settle into something larger than vengeance or vindication. The crisis that had defined me had become the bridge to others. I had built a table long enough for every seat I'd once been denied. Because she knew one thing, the real story was only just beginning. The auditorium lights blazed like Judgment Day, and there I stood, valedictorian, medal heavy around my neck, staring down at the family who'd spent years telling me I wasn't worth the investment. My parents had poured $250,000 donations into my sister Bella's Ivy League dreams, while I clawed through community college transfers, night shifts at the diner, and scholarships I earned with calluses and caffeine. They called her the legacy. They called me capable, as if that excused the silence, the empty chairs at my awards, the way they flew first class to her parents' weekends, but couldn't drive 40 minutes to see mine. But today, the microphone was mine, and the truth was about to burn the house down. I didn't plan the slides. I didn't plan the viral footage. I didn't plan for the university board to hand me a confidential letter proving they'd stripped my freshman merit scholarship to secure Bella's spot. What I did plan was the dedication speech, 15 minutes, to thank the professors who saw me. The janitor who slipped me quarters, the strangers who held doors when my own family looked away. Then the screen lit up behind me. Forged SAT scores, donation contracts. Mom's signature alone on every line that rerouted my future into Bella's pocket. The gasps turned to outrage. Phones rose like a jury, and Bella's perfect world cracked wide open. But that was only the beginning. What came next was a $1 million trust Dad hid when I was 5, a bestseller that hit #1 on the New York Times, a scholarship foundation for adopted kids in crisis, and a sister who finally wrote, "I thought you abandoned us. I see now you were pushed." The story didn't end with revenge. It ended with power-shifted tables built, and a family I chose instead of the one I was given. If this story of betrayal, comeback, and rewriting the narrative lit a fire in you, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We drop new drama every week. Real lives, Raw truths. No filters. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been the overlooked sibling? Ever uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Whose side are you on? Alex, Bella, or somewhere in between? The more you share, the louder these stories get. Let's keep the conversation going because the real story is only just beginning.